we always, shoot options, right? We shoot one that he's completely alive, one that it's a little vague, and one that he's dead. You know what I mean? And I remember, I think it was on John Wick 2. He was like, "Here's what happens. They cut my head off. They cut my head off." And I'm just like, "There's no chance you're getting your head cut off." So
Well, yes, I'm a big fan of the franchise, as we all are at Screen Rant, and I'm super excited to talk with you about John Wick Chapter 4. It's amazing to think that it's already been a decade almost since the original came out. How is it for you reflecting back on the franchise, especially as Chapter 4 has seemingly closed the doors on Keanu's tenure?
underline the word seemingly. Italicize it. Granted, this sounds cheesy, but everybody that's in the film business and television business are dreamers, right? And so you get a script and you get to page one, and there's a part of you that goes, could this be a script? Could this be the project that can change my life and change my career? And even if it's dug deep, you still think there's a little bit in there. And the idea that we got this script that no one bid for, no one really cared about, called Scorn, and we put it together, we made it under the radar. We didn't even think the movie was going to be released. To be here 10 years later to talk about this as this franchise, and not just on a commercial level, but on a creative level, on a zeitgeist level, it's kind of why you go to showbiz. It's not, you dream about these things happening, and it, we are a family now, this Wick team, and we deeply care for each other. And all of our lives have changed, including Keanu, who is, of course, Keanu Reeves is a gigantic movie star. All of our lives have changed, and we've done it together. And it's on a personal and professional level. I'm not kidding you. It's a bit overwhelming.
I'm glad that you've gotten to experience it, and that this franchise, this character has gone the way he has, because it's really been exciting to see. And it's also gone on to inspire a lot of other similar style action genres. I mean, David Leitch obviously went on to helm a bunch of his own and produce a bunch of his own. What has it been like for you also seeing that spark of action stardom after John Wick sort of blew up?
Incredibly flattering, of course, and but also satisfying in that I love action movies. I mean, we've done other non-action movies, but I love action movies. When Thunder Road first started, once we left Warner's, my whole kind of pitch was we wanted the American version of Luc Besson's company. Oh my God, what's it called?
Europa?
Europa Corp. Yeah, the American version of Europa Corp. And I'm always, for me, I think there should be an action movie in the audience, in the theaters at all times. And so, I think the John Wick franchise has activated people who make movies and distribute movies, like, oh, you can actually make an action movie that's elegant and and it looks great, and people will go see it. And so for me, just as an action nerd, I love it, because I mean, listen, a lot of the great action movies now are on Netflix, and there's foreign ones, but it's awesome. It's awesome that people are watching, Korean action films because of all the, they're going into Donnie Yen's movies. Like, that's awesome, and yes, of course it's flattering, but as a movie nerd, I think it's great because there's more for me to watch and me to see.
I'm the same way. I grew up on action movies, so I've loved seeing everybody sort of take a page out of your guys' playbook and keep it rolling. One thing I find amazing about Chapter 4 in comparison to the rest of the franchise is that it is the biggest budget of them all, and yet still somehow retains that same level feel of the original, of, very practical elements and shooting and everything. How has it been working with Lionsgate, closely, as the budgets have increased across sequels, to still ensure that it feels wholly like Chad and Keanu's vision for each movie?
I have to hand it to Lionsgate. They, after the first movie, we always talked internally, but quietly, going, God, we could do another one of these. But, the first movie, the domestic box office was okay. And yeah, I know we made money on the ancillaries, but, we were like kind of more like joking about making a second one. Lionsgate's the one that came in and said, there's something here. We're going to give you a little bit more money. Let's see what we have. And so Lionsgate as partners have been amazing because one, they believed in the film commercially from the get-go. And two, they've realized that the Wick movies are so crazy and weird and are so specific that the rules of traditional notes and studio process don't really apply. And so what I really admire and thankful about the studio is, you know, they don't just go do whatever you want to do and we'll our hands off, but they allow us to make the film we want to make, as crazy it is, and cast it and all that stuff. And they give us all the leash we need to make something nuts. And a perfect example of John Wick 4, when we first, you know, the movie's long, right? The movie's 2 hours and 47 minutes. You know, the studio was like, okay, we think it may be long, but let's show it to an audience because it doesn't matter what we think. The audience was like, we love it. And the studio was like, great, let's do it. You know, there's a faith that they've shown in us that is incredibly valued. And I think that as the films have gotten bigger and, you know, they've gotten more nuts, you know, I think that, you know, I'm putting it another way. I think Chad has gotten everything he's ever wanted in the John Wick movies. I could honestly say, I go back to all the ideas. There's never been an idea where he wishes like, damn it, those friggin' studio guys, they didn't give it to me. He's gotten everything he's wanted.
That sounds like a great partner to have then in putting these movies together, because that's, you know, some of these ideas are crazy indeed.
I know. I do feel bad as a ex-student executive myself. I oftentimes feel bad. I can only imagine what they're thinking when they see some of the dailies or see some of the stuff. They're like, what the hell is this?
Well, one of the crazy ideas that Chapter 4 threw out that we kind of hinted at earlier was that John seemingly dies at the end of the movie. And, you know, when Chad, Keanu, and the writers first approached you with that idea, what was your initial reaction to hearing that?
It came to us on 2, 3, and 4. So, you know, these movies are, you know, it beats the crap out of Keanu, right? Physically, in ways that I don't think people can ever understand. Because it's not just a shoot; he's training 3, 4, 5 months before, and at every part of it, it's a little bit of Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon. Like, I'm getting too old for this shit, and on every movie, he's like, "This is when I die. Like, I'm done." And we always, you know, shoot options, right? We shoot one that he's completely alive, one that is a little vague, and one that he's dead. You know what I mean? And I remember, I think it was on John Wick 2. He was like, "Here's what happens. They cut my head off. They cut my head off." And I'm just like, there's no chance you're getting your head cut off. So I think that what I love about the end of John Wick 4 is if this means that there's never another John Wick movie, it's a nice, elegant way of ending it, right? If there is another John Wick movie, which I do believe there will be, we don't know what it is yet, but I do believe it. I do feel like it will be a completely other book. You know, if these movies were 4 chapters, to kind of belabor the metaphor, the next John Wick will be another book. You know, it won't be like 6 months later from John Wick 4. We just don't know what that is. But we all love spending time together, and we love the process. The more time that goes by, the more we kind of miss it. As demented as it sounds, and these movies are really hard to pull off, there's something really exciting about making these movies and I don't even mean like the talking to you and the box office. I just mean making, you know, mounting it, preparing for it, casting for it. It's fun as shit.
I can only imagine. I mean, especially when you have so many big action stars like Donnie Yen coming in for these sequels, you know, it's exciting to see what they're going to do with it. And speaking of, even if we don't get an actual John Wick 5, I mean, there are a number of characters that could get further expansions. We already have Ballerina coming up next year. We just had the Continental. Is there any character in particular you would love to see be expanded upon in a spin-off or in a, you know, another chapter in this universe?
I like the Bowery King a lot, and I like that world. We scratched the surface of who he is and who these men are and women and why they do what they do. I think there's something really cool about these people who make a conscious choice to just be in the shadows and be the people that we look through every day when we walk down the street, or we like go, oh, this person wants money from me. I think that's a world that we haven't touched yet, which I think could be really cool and really, edgy and rough around, dark and like, I don't know, that is something that I've always been really intrigued with.
Anything with Lawrence Fishburne chewing up the scenery, I will take. Especially if Jason Mantzoukas can be there as his comedic foil, I will take
That's
it.
What I mean. See, everybody, all the Bowery King group, they leave an impression on every movie that they're in. It's just because there's also the guys in the Continental, and they're like knights or samurai. It's very formal, and the Bowery King people are crazy and fun and informal. And I think that's a great. I don't know. I have no idea what that world is. We're making this up as we go along, but man, that world intrigues me a lot.
I would love to see more of it myself. So what are some of the big things then that you do look for when mounting a spinoff within this franchise?
We know that Keanu is a singular movie star, right? And between his empathy, the character that we created for him, 10 years ago, what he's able to do physically, his everything, his charisma, he's a movie star. And so the key is to not do the B-level Keanu, right? Like, and also, how do we take the Wick action that we've done really well, and not just kind of replicate it and just do it again with different characters? So I think it's a combination of who our lead is and what his or her backstory is and why we should care about them, knowing that we don't have the goodwill that we set up 10 years ago on John Wick 1. How do we give the action fans, because people go see a Ballerina or anything offshoot of John Wick are going to be action fans. But how do we give them something that they go, well, that's different and cool? And I haven't seen that in the Wick movies. And then I think that it's this, that fine balance of a movie that could stay on its own if you've never seen anything from John Wick. But if you have seen the John Wick films, it actually could, you enjoy it on another level. So how much inside baseball do we kind of layer into this stuff is a big question. Listen, we're going about it for the first time. On Ballerina, we decided to put a lot of people from the John Wick world into Ballerina. I think that's just a bridge for people to go, okay, now I know. It's like, this is the John Wick world. It's like Sam Jackson and all the Marvel. I mean, I just saw another the Eternals or whatever it is, and there's Sam Jackson again. I'm like, my God. It's like, and so, I don't think we're going to do that, but I think it's just that balance of, enough new shit that people go, okay, this is worth a spinoff, but also enough of the stuff that people respond to in the Wick movies. So it is a tough balance. It is a really tough balance. And it's something struggle is the wrong word, but it's something we are constantly contemplating.
Well, I love that you had that thought process, because as a fan of the franchise, I don't want to just see recycle. I want to see fresh stuff. Yeah. So I love that. And I actually did want to look at Ballerina. I mean, there's so many amazing elements to this movie behind and in front of the camera. One that I find really intriguing was that I read that Ana de Armas brought on Emerald Fennell to help rewrite some of the script. And I'm curious how much of this, if you were privy to that, and how much of the script changed from when you first saw it to after Emerald got her hands on it.
Listen, we hired Emerald. I think Shay Hatton wrote a really cool script, right? Really, really cool script. He's a terrific writer. This was the first script he ever wrote. He wrote it when he was like 22. He looks like, I don't know if you ever met him. He looks like he's 14. And we got a script to a certain point. We bring in Anna, and our promise to Anna was always like, at a certain point when we get the structure right and the action, we want to bring in a female writer in, because it's not What we don't want, and this is important, like we don't want an action movie where we just took a male character, put it female, and then just call it a day. You know, we wanted this character to feel real, to feel feminine, to feel, you know, she wasn't sexless, but she wasn't objectified sexually. You know, she wasn't, you know, someone who doesn't smile. You know, all the tropes that you see on a lot of female assassin movies. We wanted someone that felt legit and real and grounded female character. And Emerald is a gigantic John Wick fan. It's just shocking how many fancy people love the John Wick movies. They always, it's like they apologize too. Like, oh, I know. But I'm like, it's okay. You can admit it. Emerald loves the John Wick movies, like loved it. And she was like, I don't see these kinds of movies. This is awesome. And she wrote a fucking great draft. And we used, you know, a vast majority of it. And she gave that character, honest character, some real, it felt real. You know, it felt like a real, I'm not saying real, because remember we're talking about the John Wick world, but it felt grounded, emotionally grounded as a female character. That, you know, mixed in with her lethality is really, really fucking cool.
I love that. And I can't wait to learn more about it when the time comes for updates on that. I see I am out of time, so I will go ahead and head out. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
No,
man.
man. Thank you. Honor. I appreciate the interest. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Have a good rest of your week.